Hey guys, Tyler Jeffco with Seller Account, and today I want to talk about your cash cycle. I love e-commerce because it's so different than, say, a service business like an accounting firm like I have. You have the ability as an e-commerce seller to scale based on capital deployment, whereas in my accounting practice, I'm generally only able to scale to the degree I can hire people to deliver the service, right? So you either kind of have a people constraint or you have a capital constraint. E-commerce is kind of nice in that it's a capital constraint, but that means that understanding your cash cycle and getting better at managing that cash cycle is one of the most important things you can do as an e-commerce seller. And frankly, e-commerce is notorious for having a really, really long cash cycle. Why is that? The time between when we have to pay for or place the bets on our inventory, especially as a brand owner or a private label seller, are just those times are really far before we actually get paid when the sale happens. And it's kind of exacerbated by the fact that Amazon has a 14-day pay cycle normally, and so we're having to wait. Or it's even worse if we're selling into bricks and mortar or kind of a wholesale kind of model where we are having to wait and give terms to the people we're selling to also. And so again, cash cycle long for two reasons. We got to place bets early. We got to pay for inventory early. And sometimes we have to wait to get paid, creating this gap or chasm where we're having to stroke the check and then hold our breath and wait a few months to get paid when those units actually sell. By the way, this is why it's really, really important to have good accrual accounting, because sometimes that cash cycle creates enough of a distance that it can be really hard to see whether you actually made money on the sales or whether you lost money. And so you've got to be able to line up those inventory costings with the actual sales. But you know what? That doesn't matter. What really matters and what I think will serve you in this video is, what do you do about it? How can I manage my cash cycle better, improve it, try to shave a few days off of it so that I get to keep my cash longer or I get it back more quickly? And I'll give you 3 quick nuggets that might be able to help you better manage your cash cycle. The first thing I want to say is we can develop, I know this is not easy, by the way, it's easier said than done, but investing in the relationships with our supply chain partners, there's just no substitute to it. I know a lot of us are here in the States and we have an Asian supply partner and it's been a pandemic. It's difficult to get over there. But the most successful supply chain companies I've worked with, and I'm the CFO for some fairly large ones, they just do the work. They make the phone calls. They fly over and spend time with their partners. Or they have really good brokers and supply chain intermediaries that give them the ability to leverage a closer relationship, develop more ties, more trust, more volume with your key suppliers, so that you can then go to them and say, hey, I need help. I can grow more quickly if I get some relief. Instead of me having to either pay you all up front or pay 50% up front and 50% when you ship it, could I get more favorable terms? And for every day or every week you can push out those payments to your supplier, you're just shortening that cash cycle, which means you can grow with less capital. So the most important thing to do is you got to manage your supply chain, and there's no shortcuts. You're going to have to work hard, but you know what? The answer is always no if you don't ask for it. So even if you don't feel like you have a great relationship, fire off that email and say, hey, we're growing quickly. We need relief on terms. What can you do for us? And just see what happens. You might find that they're willing to give you a few weeks of relief, and that might make all the difference in the world in terms of stretching your cash. Second thing you might do is, this is, again, easier said than done, but you just might have to manage your inventory better. Think about this as kind of a boat illustration. If I'm in a big ship, I'm going to have sensors and depth finders and all sorts of stuff to make sure that I don't run aground. I don't want to crash this ship. And to the extent that my sensors and depth finders are dialed in, they're accurate, I can afford to operate my ship pretty close to the shore because I can see what's happening under the water and I can know if there's something I need to avoid. But to the extent that my sensors stink, that my systems on the boat are not operating properly to know how deep the water is, I don't have any choice but to be way out in the deep water where I may not be able to do the work I'm trying to do. It's the same thing with inventory. If I have good inventory management systems, technology, practices, I'm actually receiving my inventory correctly. I know what's in transit. I know roughly how many days before it's going to get to Amazon or to my 3PL. And I have good technology that can give me some kind of a report of where my inventory is. To that extent, I don't have to keep as much inventory because I'm not quite as concerned about stocking out because I missed something. But to the extent that my inventory management's terrible, I don't have a choice but to buy a larger run or buy it more more quickly because I'm scared to death I'm going to stock out. And as a result, I've got to have that much more capital stuck in the business. And so the second nugget here, again, easier said than done, but invest some time, not just in your supply chain relationships, which is the first point, but the second one is invest in improving your inventory management so that you can see where things are better. And then finally here, sometimes your sales channels may allow you to get paid a little bit more quickly. There are some Amazon accounts where you can request daily payouts or weekly payouts, and you may not have to wait that full 2 weeks. If that's the option for you, take advantage of it. Don't be afraid to get that money more quickly. That's a few days you're shaving off of that cash cycle, even more so if you have vendors where you're actually selling wholesale packages. It can make a lot of sense to address them just like you would your suppliers and say, hey, I need to get paid a little bit more quickly. Can we work together to shorten, instead of net 60 terms, net 60-day terms, maybe I get net 30. I mean, that 30 days is a lot of time that your money is out there. So again, in summary, you got to know what your cash cycle is, and it's worth investing a little bit of your time as the CEO of your company each week, each month, to developing supply chain relationships, managing my inventory more closely, and getting paid as quickly as I can from where I'm selling my goods. If you do those 3 things, you'll have a better cash cycle, and your capital will be able to stretch further so that you can grow. Take care.